my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about my favorite anime of 2023. This is going to be a top 10 list with some honorable mentions of anime that aired between winter of 2023 to the fall of 2023. Disclaimer, I'm pretty good at keeping up with seasonals, but there are some that I know that I missed, especially of the Netflix variety. But what I did watch and is in this video today are mostly just ranked by my own personal enjoyment level. Quality was, of course, considered as well. And with that, it is now time to name the honorable mentions, and these are ranked from what is furthest away from the list to what was actually really close to being number 10. First up is the magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and the genius young lady, followed by why Raeliana ended up at the Duke's mansion, Insomniacs After School, the Yuzuki family's 4 sons, Buddy Daddies, Spy Family Season 2, Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village arc, and finally the show that was closest to making my actual list is My Happy Marriage. And with that, let's go ahead and start with number 10. Deathplay is a reverse isekai that follows our corpse god main character after he dies in battle and gets reincarnated into modern-day Tokyo as Polka Shinoyama, where he soon finds himself targeted by numerous, and I do mean numerous, groups and individuals who deal with the supernatural. I was actually convinced that I hated this show based off of the first part of the first episode. Like, I really thought they were going to be an easy week 1 drop, but then the isekai happened and they started showing their comedy more, and suddenly it all fell into place and eventually we just clicked. Deathplay is a show that is really complex. It has a lot going on at all times. It has a lot of moving parts and characters, and I do think that that is probably too many characters, to the point where the introduction of the new characters just started to feel overwhelming during the second half. It's a show that every week would leave me with more questions than answers more often than not, but also always kept me intrigued by what was going on, because I was invested and I did always want to know what those answers were going to be. They also have some really good villains. Phantom Solitaire, for example, was just an absolute joy to watch, and all of the characters were good, honestly. Even if there were a lot of them, and I mentioned the comedy for a second earlier, but they were funny in a way that I really didn't expect them to be. And there were a lot of things about this show that I didn't expect. They surprised me. They're not your typical edgy, bland isekai that I thought they were going to be for a second. Deathplay was an anime that was certainly a lot, but I just had so much fun with all of it. Mobile Suit Gundam The Witch from Mercury follows our main character Soletta Mercury, who, after leaving her home planet for school, meets Miorine Rembrandt and soon finds herself in a duel between herself and Miorine's fiancé for her hand in marriage. And even though she does win this duel, Soletta then finds herself detained for piloting a forbidden mobile suit. This prompts Miorine to propose a different duel that could end with Soletta being expelled and her mobile suit being destroyed. This was my first Gundam series, which I feel like ended up being both a good and a bad thing. It's good because it's a great series to start off with, and it's the reason why I'm interested in more. But it's also bad because I went into the show basically knowing nothing about this universe except for like the very basics, which I don't really feel like you have to know that much to enjoy this show or to even understand this show. But I did end up wishing that I had more background in all of this to fully appreciate all that the series was doing. And like Deathplay, nothing about The Witch from Mercury felt simple or flat. It all felt really complex, and also like Deathplay, it had a lot of characters. But I do feel like The Witch from Mercury might have established its characters better, because even though there were a lot of them, I never really felt overwhelmed or like they should stop. And they're all interesting characters with their own motives and goals and personalities, and I did end up getting really attached to them, and I also thought that they were just refreshing in a lot of ways. And then you can also take what I just said about the characters and like times it by 10 for our 2 main characters. Because let's face it, they're the reason why I watched this, and any moment where I felt any confusion or maybe even boredom, I stayed with this series because of them. I was excited to turn it on every week because of them. And on that note, I really liked the romance. I was rooting for them the entire time, and they put me through it. And this show as a whole really hit the emotional notes that it needed to, and the action scenes were incredible and just fun to watch. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't love every moment in here. There were times where I had some trouble getting into what was going on, but I'm glad that I watched it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where Gundam goes from now on. Dark Gathering follows our main character Keitaro, who has a strong supernatural presence that led to his right hand being cursed. Now a college student, he decides to become a private tutor where his first client is a young girl who also happens to be his childhood best friend's cousin. And this girl can also see the supernatural as she has 2 pupils in each eye. This girl is searching for the powerful spirit that took her mother's soul after her parents died in a car accident, and she enlists Keitaro into helping her gather other evil spirits for her quest. When I first got into anime, horror was one of my favorite genres, and I just kind of fell out of it. Like, I wasn't finding a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed. Nothing really worked for me for a long time, and at first, Dark Gathering didn't either. I wrote a couple of their manga chapters before their series aired, and I was fully convinced that I just didn't really like them. But when I watched the episodes that those chapters covered, I realized that I liked them a lot better. And at some point, by the time the second half of the anime started, they had fully won me over. I'm not sure where or when this happened specifically, but I'm glad that it did. They're very graphic. I have seen things in this show that I can't unsee and that have genuinely freaked me out. And I like that our main characters are just as into that feeling as I am when it comes to their adventures, although they're certainly much more into horror than I am. And even though they're creepy and they're brutal and they're uncomfortable at times, they're also fun. Like, I will always appreciate a show that can get strong reactions and feelings out of me. They make me care and they make me pay attention. The structure of their story felt very familiar, very shonen, but I think that they made it work, and I think that they set their story up in a way that made me excited and interested for everything that was coming next. And yeah, some storylines worked better than others for me, but I'll be along for the ride for as long as they want to go. I am hoping for a renewal here, but maybe I'll give the manga another chance in the meantime. The Apothecary Diaries follows our main character after she is sold to the Imperial Court as a maid, where she tries to hide her background and knowledge as an apothecary to avoid unwanted attention. However, soon after she arrives, she is able to easily solve the case of the deaths of the Emperor's newborn children, and even though she does try to do this anonymously, one of the eunuchs is able to easily single her out and promote her to a lady-in-waiting for a highly favored concubine, where she must continue to use her expertise to solve and fix all of the different situations that happen within the Imperial Court. We went from a series that I did check out pre-adaptation to one that I was supposed to. I hauled the first volume of this long before the anime started with every intention of getting into this series before the adaptation came out, and it just didn't happen. It will happen now, but I'm probably just going to wait until this season finishes airing. But going into this series, I had only ever heard about it from the hype around the manga, and I do see why it has gained that hype. I have dropped a lot of anime that have revolved around solving cases over the years, and yet this year I seem to have gained a couple within this genre, which on that note, shout out to this show, which is like an honorable mention to the honorable mentions because I like them, but I also find them to be inexcusably formulaic. But I do like what I've seen from them so far, and I really like what I have seen from the Apothecary Diaries so far. At least mostly. I mean, there's a reason why they're down at number 6, because they are set in the past, and even though I like their setting, they do feel kind of problematic at times. So I haven't liked everything in that sense. There have been random moments that have kind of taken me out of it at times. But what I have liked, I have really loved and have gotten really invested in, and I also really like our main character. She's very fun and intelligent, and I love how stoic and dry she can be. She kind of reminds me of Senku from Dr. Stone, which I love that for both of them, and a lot of my enjoyment of this show does come from her character. But the apothecary stuff was also really interesting and not something that I have personally seen a lot of. And when it comes to the romance, I like them. I feel like I could really like them, but right now I'm more curious about them than anything. So I'm looking forward to seeing more development here because I do like the idea of them. They have some really fun moments and banter banter. I will say he can sometimes feel like an old school shoujo love interest, which on one hand, I like that because shoujo is just unfortunately something you don't see a lot of anymore. But on the other hand, he does have some of the more unfortunate actions and moments that come with that territory. For all of its faults, this show does have a charm to it, and it certainly overcame the chance of me finding it boring, which I could have easily. They're just fun, and I'm really looking forward to the second half and seeing where they go. Hell's Paradise follows our main character Gabimaru, who is a ninja whose hands are soaked in a lot of blood as he is being sentenced to death. However, after each attempt to execute him ultimately fails, a member of the Executioner clan offers him a chance to gain a pardon. All he has to do is obtain the elixir of life from a mysterious island and give it to the shogun. Unaware of all of the dangers of this island, he accepts with a handful of other death row convicts in hopes that he can finally live a peaceful life with his wife. It's always satisfying when you know that you're going to like a series going into it, and then you do like it. Which, yeah, I knew that I was going to like this going into it. It's creepy and it's violent in beautiful ways, and I love just the mix and the contrast of all of those things. It also has a really interesting cast of characters, and I really like a lot of them. And this won't be the last time in this video that this topic comes up, but in terms of Studio MAPPA, the animation of this series is incredible, and the animators of this studio deserve so much better than MAPPA and how MAPPA treats them. It's exploitative, it's unacceptable, it's sad, and it's gross. MAPPA absolutely needs to do better. Which also just sounds like an understatement. But yeah, the animators, they're incredibly talented. Everything in the show looks so stunning and so fluid, and it made me excited for every single fight scene. By all means, Hell's Paradise is a show that should have worked for me, and it does. Sometimes it's really just that simple. Also, if you don't know this next statement, which you might not, because I don't think that I've ever talked about it on this channel, and if I did, it was like once very briefly. But I was also a fan of this author's other work, which I thought was cancelled way too soon. And I was a fan of that series before I really even ever knew about Hell's Paradise, so because of that, the series also gets like a little bit of extra bonus points. My love story with Yameda follows our main character Akane, who has just been broken up with by her boyfriend who has left her for another girl. She forms a plan to get back at him by attending an in-person event for the MMO they used to play together, and runs into Akito Yameda, who she quickly ropes into her scheme and ends up confiding in and venting to. And even though these two have a lot of differences, the more that they get to know each other, the more that the relationship between them develops into something that neither of them expected. This show has legitimately some of the most heartwarming and emotional moments that I have ever seen between two love interests. I got so emotionally invested in these two. They are so adorable, and the show also has some really amazing comedy, which Studio Madhouse absolutely just gave them a great high-quality adaptation. They also have a lot of cute and really fun characters. I do think that they shoehorned in some unnecessary drama that also just felt kind of basic to me, but the emotional moments and the relationship development between these two was so good, I can't even be mad at that. And even though it did feel shoehorned, they did actually make me feel emotionally involved in it. There are moments and lines in this show that have really stuck with me, and I find myself comparing other anime and manga couples to these two. I also just really liked how they incorporated the gaming elements. Again, there were some really fun moments and relationships formed. I've read quite a few comments that say that the manga only gets better from where the anime left off, and we don't have a renewal yet. So I look forward to seeing the series again when the manga volumes become more available. Psalm 100, Bucket List of the Dead, follows our main character Akira, who has just landed his dream job and all seems to be going really well for him until he discovers that his new workplace is really exploitative. After 3 years go by, he is unable to recognize himself and has lost all passion for life. However, that all changes when the zombie apocalypse breaks out, and he realizes that that means that he no longer has to go back to work. And the series follows him as he sets out to complete the 100 things that he wants to do before becoming becoming a zombie. Again, sometimes you see a series and you just know, and Zom 100 is everything that I could have ever wanted it to be and more. It is so much fun and so stupid in the best way. And it's also really inspiring at the same time. Like, it really leans into the you only live once thing, which could be kind of cheesy, but it also has enough heart in it and emotion behind it to make it really work. And it also helps that the characters of this series are lovable. The director and the studio really did an amazing job with it. I know they had the hiatus and more than a handful of delays, but I would love to see them succeed after this because the show really does have some really incredible moments. Like, Zom 100 made me recognize just the quality and talent of the director. And that's saying something. They also have a really fun vibe and aesthetic. It's zombie apocalypse, but it's colorful and fun. Zom 100 really feels like it knows who it is, and it does have a nice balance between like the fun, occasionally crude stupidity of it all, and the really heartfelt, emotional moments. I've already checked out a handful of chapters from the manga, and I'm really excited to read more and see more of these characters just live their best zombie apocalypse lives. There's a lot of chemistry between them. I would also really appreciate a renewal with this one, so I'll be waiting. Like, probably a while, and take your time for sure, but I'll be waiting. Frieren Beyond Journey's End follows an elven mage named Frieren, who was a part of the heroes party that defeated the Demon King, and although these memories and the bonds between the party members are precious to most of them, the adventure was merely a small fraction of Frieren's life. After they disband, she returns to her normal life with no strong feelings about her journey due to her warped sense of time. However, as the years pass, she gradually realizes just how these days have impacted her, as she sets out to better understand humans and form personal connections with others. I mean, it's currently ranked #1 on Mal for a reason. It's a beautiful show, both in terms of quality and content. Like, it stole my heart right away. There was like a small arc in here that I had some trouble getting into, which is why it's at #3 right now for me. But the rest of the show feels almost perfect, which is kind of wild to say because nothing's really ever perfect. And this show isn't, but it also does feel like it's kind of close. They also do a really good job of making you feel the weight of time and of grief, both of which are really complex for our main character. Like, I have no doubt that this show is going to completely break me at some point. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'll be sobbing when it does. I could follow this show for a long time and be happy, and I probably will based on how it's doing. There's just something about it that feels calming and wonderful, and it has a huge chance of ending up very high on my all-time favorites list when it's all said and done. Jujutsu Kaisen follows our main character Yuji Itadori, who spends his days with the occult club and visiting his hospitalized grandfather. However, he soon gets exposed to the world of curses when he encounters a cursed item, of which he ends up swallowing. This item ends up being the finger of the King of Curses, Sakuna, and with the newfound powers that the finger gives him, Itadori is enrolled in the Tokyo Prefectural Jujutsu High School, where he begins his journey as a Jujutsu sorcerer. Season 2 of JJK is the series that really solidified my love for this series. Like, I knew that I liked them, and I knew that I really liked them by the end of Season 1, but this season, and also the movie, have fully moved us into the love territory. For not only the story, but also, and maybe especially, the characters. Which, of course, that's happening at a time where they can really hurt me, and they certainly have. And if I wasn't on the edge of my seat, terrified for these characters before this arc, I certainly am now, so thanks for that wake-up call. I don't know, it's just good. The characters are good, the fight scenes are good, the music's really good. There is a reveal in here that I do feel kind of mixed feelings about, but it's still good anyway. And again, the animation and the visuals all around are just another level entirely, and just take what I said about this studio when I talked about Hell's Paradise and place it here. I feel like JJK just gives us so many exciting things and moments consistently. From their Shonen Jump Dark Trio moments to these slice of life comedy moments. And it's probably only going to get a lot better in terms of storyline, and my mind and my heart are really not ready for that, but like, I need it anyway. So usually at this point in my top 10s list, I will have already talked about how close it was was between number 1 and number 2, or 3 and number 1, or whatever the case may be. And honestly, that is the case for spots 2 and 3. They could have easily have swapped with one another depending on the day. So that was a hard decision to make, but this number 1 spot, that was easy. Skip and Loafer follows our main character Misumi, who comes from a small country town but is chasing her dreams in a large Tokyo high school, where she quickly discovers that the social norms of city high schoolers are more out of her element than she originally thought. I have a full review up on this channel for the first 8 volumes of the manga, and if you've seen that video, or really any other video where I've talked about Skip and Loafer, you know how much I love this series. I fell in love with this series when I saw their opening. Like, prior to the season, I had enjoyed some other anime very recently at the time from this studio, so Skip and Loafer was already on my radar pre-season, and also the poster just looks super cute. I love their art style, but I don't think that my brain fully processed just how excited I was for them until I saw the opening. I feel like I watched the show just smiling and laughing and gazing lovingly at them like an idiot, like the entire time, with, you know, some tearing up occasionally, both from the cuteness of everything but also from the drama and the angst, because these characters just deserve all of the good things that they could ever possibly have in the world. But they go through and have been through so much trauma, and it really does hit hard emotionally. Skip and Loafer is just a show that has so much charm to it and some really amazing comedic moments. And just watching the relationships form between these characters felt so pure and healthy and refreshing. From the communication to the love and support between them, and that goes for both friends and family members. This show has a huge focus on just being yourself and taking things at your own pace and following your own path. And also picking yourself back up when you're down. I don't know if there's a character in this series that I haven't personally related to at some point. It all felt so human and so inspiring, and it's also just my comfort series. I loved every single second of watching it. Okay, so that is all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer the question that'll be around here if you want to do that, and hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye!